not layered with D'Addario strings. This video will be a primer for effects processing and exactly what we're doing with effects processing. If you've got an electric violin and an amplifier, you know that you can plug your violin into an amplifier and make your violin louder, and that's a great benefit for anybody. Can get your violin up to stage volumes, you don't have to worry about feedback, and it just generally makes life a lot easier playing in a situation where you're trying to play louder than another group of people, or as loud as. But there's a whole world of things that you can do with an electric violin if you have an effects processor. Think of an effects processor as a piece of equipment that does lots of special effects for an analog electric violin, which really that's probably what you have, an analog electric violin. Various effects can include things like reverb, which maybe some of you have reverb on your amplifier. It can include something called a delay, which I was just playing a few moments ago, a chorus, or possibly a flanger, or a phase shifter. And throughout the next few videos, I'm going to talk about each of those special effects so that you know exactly what they do. But before we do that generally, let's just think about special effects and what we want to do. Most special effects are designed to give the impression of space, the space around you, whether it's reverb, which gives the impression of the size of the room that you're in, or delay that gives an impression of distance, because think of if we holler into a canyon, hello, hello, we'll hear that delay or echo. That's what a delay does. Choruses give a spatial impression, flangers, phasers, and others. So really with special effects or effects processing, that's what we're doing. But I really recommend that you dive into the world of effects processing because they really expand what you can do with an electric violin or electric viola or cello. Now, how do you connect them, first of all? Well, the first thing that you want to do is connect your special effects in line. And that's the way we want to do it, which means that we're taking the output of the violin, this cable, and we're running that to some kind of an effects processor. Mine's on the floor right here. I use a Digitech foot switch in smaller situations like the one I'm in right now because I really like the sounds that the Digitech makes, and they're really programmable. I can do a lot of things with those sounds. So we go out of the violin into the Digitech, and then we take the output of the Digitech and go in to the amplifier, which makes it an inline special effect. Out of the violin, the signal goes into the effects processor, out of the effects processor, into the amplifier. Now, if you've watched some of my other videos, you know that I strongly recommend that you use the volume knob on your instrument as an on-off switch. In other words, it's either all the way up for on or all the way off for off, all the way back for off. Nowhere in between, all the way up or all the way back. Then, virtually every effects processor has a setting in it for what we call input gain. Now, what is input gain? Well, throughout any special effects chain or any inline series of effects, we add amplification to the signal, and that can happen in a lot of places. If you have an active electric violin, there's some amplified signal coming out of the electric violin. Then, as you go into the effects processor, you're usually adding amplification of some kind to the signal, so you're adding to that. And then you go out of the effects processor and you end up adding signal into the amplifier. So these gain knobs are very, very important. And the way I like to describe them is they're sort of like little dams for signal. We want to either put the dam up so less signal can get through. That would be by turning the gain knob down. Turn down the amplification so not so much signal is going through. Or we can put the dam down by turning the gain knob up, letting lots of signal go through. And it's really based on getting the right amount of gain the whole way through. You want there to be enough signal going into your effects processor to allow it to hear what you're doing. But you don't want so much signal that it will do something called clipping. Now, clipping is when there's so much signal going through the system that it distorts and doesn't sound right. Now, that's not the same kind of distortion as just putting a cool distortion on it like electric guitar, but it's actually clipping. It's distorting the signal in some way that we don't like. So always think of your instrument as sending signal out, and then you need to figure out how high you want that dam or how low you want that dam, first going into your effects processor and then coming out of your effects processor. That is called setting gain structure, and that will allow your effects processing to just really work in the proper way. So I hope that helps. Hope that now you can set up an inline effects processor with a proper gain structure, and you're set up to learn these effects and what they do. In the next video, we'll talk a little bit about reverb and exactly what reverb does. Thanks.